Yeah, I mean, it goes back to purpose and passion. I mean, if you are passionate about something, anything, whether it's music or anything else, some artistic thing, um, it gives you a purpose. And if you're feeling like you don't have a purpose, then find something that you can get passionate about to give yourself a purpose, and then never give up. Because even if you are just alone, if COVID has shut things down, at least you have a passion to create your art, and you can still create it all by yourself. Although it's more exciting if there are others to share it with. But this craft of music, you must practice in isolation, and then you must deliver in front of a crowd to get that kind of satisfaction, to know that it matters. So that's the dichotomy of the music. If you are alone, work on your craft, have passion for it. It'll give you a purpose. And then when you have an opportunity to perform, don't be afraid. It might be easier to perform with somebody else by your side. And, the more you perform, you feel that certain feeling, and the music becomes alive, and it becomes its own thing. And if that's what you truly love, don't give up on it. Have that passion, and you'll have a purpose, and it'll make life more meaningful.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host Brian. And joining me today is a special guest, Jimmy Adler. How you doing, brother?
Great. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. And
Good.
to fill everybody in, picture it. Summer of last year, 2022, I actually met Jimmy Adler at a friend's house. He was actually playing. He was playing on his balcony, and it was him and his bandmates too. And do you remember Keith?
Yeah. We were outside on a little balcony, and they had like a pig roast.
Yeah.
It was a nice little party.
It was.
Yeah.
And I actually was the photographer and videographer who was going around all over the place taking pictures of all you guys. That was pretty awesome.
Correct. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was absolute party. But how you been? I guess what you been up to recently?
Well, just doing the day-to-day thing. Is still playing some music and teaching and trying to get through the winter months, which have not been too bad, but a little chilly.
Yeah, today was actually a little chilly. It was actually very cold in the morning, but some days it feels like spring outside. Do you notice that too?
Well, yeah. Lately, it's been not. There have been some good days. Yeah.
You know what? I wish I had the chance to go outside and walk, but I got too distracted by work. So I need to get back and do an exercise too. I'm catching on my winter weight right now, so it's going to suck for spring and summer to burn it all off. So, but you did mention about teaching too, so we're actually going to cover that during this whole interview here. But the way this works is my podcast is more just trying to get people on here and just get to know more, both as the musician and as the individual. So, got the questions right here. Just going to walk you through it. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so let's start with the first one.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Jimmy Adler?
Well, that's a good question.
It's an extensive story.
Well, Jimmy Adler, my name is Adelsperger. It's 12 letters, and you have to spell it. It's P as in Paul. And so when I started playing music out in clubs some time ago, I decided to use Adler because I never have to spell it. It's very simplistic. So Jimmy Adler is, really the same person, but the name is indicative of the guy who plays the guitar and does that kind of thing. Even though I teach high school English, and I'm Adelsperger is the name, or Mr. A, like apple, the fruit of knowledge. The kids also know that I'm Jimmy Adler, and occasionally, if they feel a little bit frisky, they'll say, "Hey, Jimmy Adler," or "Mr. Adler." So it's not too complicated, although that's the story.
I see. And you said you teach English. Is that your main job? And then this is kind of like a nice little side hustle you do?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. I teach 10. I teach 15-year-olds. It's a great year. That's they come in, they're 15, and by the time they leave in June, they're usually driving a car, going to a job, and maybe have somebody significant by their side. And I
Oh my gosh, this would be amazing if you were my English teacher. Oh my gosh.
but I say that early in the year, and they look at me, and then I just did another check-in halfway through, and a handful of them have been driving, not many, but more have been working, and then I let the other part go. I said, well, I'm going to let, as far as your significant other, So yeah, it's an interesting year to work with young kids.
When you said teaching, when we first started off here, I thought you were talking about music teacher. And that was actually one of the questions, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. But
yeah, well, that's okay. I mean, I've taught music. I've done after-school guitar programs, and I always try to incorporate music, specifically blues, into what I teach. I teach at a creative and performing arts high school, so a lot of kids are interested in the arts. I mean, that's why they're there. And we're currently reading an August Wilson play, which is a Pittsburgh playwright, and he's steeped in the blues. And so it gives me an opportunity to try to educate kids because, in my opinion, you won't really hear the blues unless somebody serves it up to you. So I try to do that to give them a little taste of what the music is all about.
Oh, that's so sweet. I guess so. Why blues music, though? I guess, did you kind of mess around with a little rock and roll at first and then just kind of segue into blues music, or had you just always been kind of that blues guy?
Well, I do know my brother played drums. My brother's like 2 grades ahead of me, and he played drums in the basement. And there was a kid over there, Zach Smith, came over one time to play with my brother, and he was playing the guitar and doing this Chuck Berry thing. At the time, I was just fascinated. He was with the pinky, and it just was fascinating to me, and that really intrigued me. And then another friend of my brother's got me a guitar, and they started showing me how to play. At the time that I was learning, like at the age of 15. Eddie Van Halen had a song called Eruption. and all of the kids in the music class, I had a guitar class at school. We kind of sat in the back room, and one kid played the back of the guitar like drums, and the other kids would just share songs. Neil Young's Decade album was popular, Old Man, Look at My Life, and that sort of thing. But Eddie Van Halen's Eruption was the big thing, and people were playing it. And I just couldn't wrap my brain around what that. I just could not comprehend it. But somehow a kid gave me a Rolling Stones record, Sticky Fingers, which I thought was fabulous. And then, like everybody else of my generation, you find names on the records of these blues artists. And Jimmy Reed was one of the first ones that I found because he did that thing, and he did it real slow that I could follow. And so I thought, wow, I could play along with this record. So you just put the needle on, and he only played in 2 keys, either E like Edward or A like Apple. And you could get a feel for that and then kind of learn the little turnarounds, like there's certain Jimmy Reed turnaround. Or there's. So I was very fascinated with the Jimmy Reed stuff, and he has another guitar player named Eddie Taylor who doesn't always get the credit, but those 2 guitars together sounded great, and I could tell that's where the Rolling Stones were getting their 2 guitar sound. And the fact that it was slow and it had a nice beat and groove, I could sit with the record and comprehend it, unlike Eddie Van Halen. It wasn't like I was crying about not being able to play like Eddie Van Halen. It just it went over my head. So, but I found something in Jimmy Reed, and then later, B.B. King and others that just kind of seemed to speak to me.
I see. Yeah, Eddie, he was in a whole other league of his own when they first came out with that album, and man, that was 1978. And
78, yeah.
I miss him too. I really wish I got to see him live. And it's almost like these. You wish your parents had the iPhones like today when you see everybody on, since they are. Because nowadays they're pretty much advertising like the camera angles or even just like how the camera looks, or it's getting that autofocus and everything too. So the picture's like real clean and crisp, not compared to like the DSL camera. So I kind of wish they had it so they were able to show me footage whenever they went to go see Van Halen back in 1984. But I think I've seen like these videos since you talked about Eruption. I'm seeing like these long solo videos he's doing of like 6 minutes straight of maybe just finger tapping and everything too. So
yeah,
it's like you said, it's a whole nother beast too. So I can see why you're probably like, yeah, right, or that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, he's fascinating. But when it's like when you latch onto something that you kind of feel like you could be part of it, and that's what the blues guys were like. There was just something there that kind of felt right. And it was more akin to what I was really listening to, like I said, which was the Rolling Stones, and Eric Clapton, those guys, and not even so much Cream. The other Eric Clapton records, particularly the Blues Breakers album with John Mayall, and the Rolling Stones records. I mean, it was like there's a period where I went through many of the Rolling Stones records, and it just became a fascination. But then going back to find the blues, and so that was, and then you try to go back further because you try to figure out like who did B.B. King listen to, T-Bone Walker, and where did Jimmy Reed and Eddie Taylor get their sound, and then this thing about slide guitar fascinated me, and I don't know if it was first from George Thorogood or actually I had an Elmore James record first, and then George Thorogood, I had this record. And I thought I figured out what he was doing, and I went to see him in a concert. This is before he had any hits, so you could get down real close. And I was watching his fingers, and he was doing what I thought he was doing, and that was very satisfying to see him, with the open D tuning, with the slide, or doing his Chuck Berry thing. He was just a great showman, but his playing was simplistic and directly from the blues. The Elmore James style and the Chuck Berry style, and so it kind of came all together. That sounded pretty good to me, Did
you try doing a play style similar to like Stevie Ray Vaughan too? Trying to incorporate into your own?
Yeah, no. When he came out, I mean, that was kind of a frightening thing because he was so explosive, but so steeped in the blues, and so like if I even hear him now, he's so pure, and there's been so many people that picked up the guitar and tried to play like him, and so many Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of proteges or wannabes or whatever. But he's, you can never duplicate like an original. And even though Stevie was taken from other people like Albert King and Lonnie Mack and countless other musicians. He had a touch, he had a feel, he wasn't too overdriven. Some people try to play like him and they've got that tube screamer a little bit too heavy. Stevie Ray Vaughan, pure. But I really, there again, because he was sometimes over my head, like Scuttlebutton. I remember trying to learn that thing in open E really fast. And I didn't have the dexterity, I couldn't do it. But Jimmy Vaughan, Stevie's brother, with the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and now on his own as a solo, was more I could tune up to what he was doing because it was I don't want to say more simplistic, but it was I could kind of maybe think I could play that way. So Jimmy Vaughan became really for me the Vaughan brother to study because of his style and sound.
I'd say it was more doable, yeah. And that's the same way with me with doing drums, too. So I can see what you mean. And, you know what? I kind of wish I knew more Stevie Ray Vaughan songs because really the first one that always comes to mind is Pride and Joy. So
yeah, it was a big hit, yeah.
And of course, it's one of his bigger hits, yeah. So you feel kind of bad, at least in my generation, I feel kind of bad because I get so swamped up in trying to, like, do all the things with, like, rock and metal and that sort of thing, too. And I kind of wish I listened to more blues, and listening to you a couple times, it was like, wow, these guys are good. And actually, I've seen you a couple times. It wasn't just at Keith, but you had also came to an event close by to my house. I don't want to disclose it on here, but it was it was one of those blues festivals, and it was one of those open fields where the stages were and everything. Hardwood Acres, actually, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Might as well go ahead and spoil it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Actually, you were on the side stage there, and
Yeah.
I kind of wish I put you on the main stage too. But regardless, I guess what made you wanted to say, like, you know what, I'm going to do blues along with my main job and see where it goes? What made you want to say that?
Well, when you fall into something, speaking of that question specifically, is just the music felt good to try to play it, and it's a lifelong pursuit to try to constantly get better, but it feels good to do it. It's like a religion. It's like a cleansing. It's like a if you're having a rough week or a rough day or whatever, playing the music is like a catharsis. It's a real cleansing of the soul. It just feels good to do. And then to be able to share it, to take it out of your bedroom and take it to an audience and have a reaction from people is really a kind of a powerful thing. That people kind of appreciate what you're doing. That just feels good. But it's probably, but I'm not doing it for that. I mean, it's probably purely selfish reasons. It's just a spiritual thing. You're trying to emulate the essence of the people that I loved, that I still love to listen to, for whether it be Jimmy Reed or Elmore James or B.B. King or on and on, T-Bone Walker. You're trying to tap into whatever that is and catch a metaphorical wave and try to just make it happen. So it's a constant challenge for me to try to do what I can't do, to try to always achieve something I can't quite do, but yet it's the Sisyphus thing, right? The mythology of the character who pushes the boulder up the hill every morning and gets almost to the top, and boom, the boulder goes back down. And every day you're trying to do the same thing, but it's the journey that matters. The opportunity to try to have another chance to push that boulder forward, or to play that swing song, or to play that certain something that you couldn't get before, constantly trying. And it gives you a purpose, gives life a purpose. I think people need a purpose. And without a purpose, I don't know, what we'd be doing sitting around. I don't know. You have to have a
bloody catastrophe, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know what you mean too. And it's like, it's more of the uphill struggle, so to speak. And this is actually the first time I heard you reference that term, because I've always referenced it just as the uphill struggle and just pushing that boulder up and everything too. But yeah, I say without any sort of purpose. I mean, it's almost like, what are you really doing in your life? You're just kind of sitting around not doing anything too. So, and that's the kind of thing I've seen a lot, and it gets pretty deep at times too. So I think for anybody who does watch this, I think look for people who talk about the meaning crisis and stuff like that too. So it's a little bit of a side note there, but I guess, have you ever delved into that before?
Well, it's important because I teach, as I said, 15-year-olds, high school kids, there's a lot of struggles that they have that I don't even know about. But, the fact that they're in a creative and performing arts school, at least they have a sense of purpose. If they're not interested in academics or my English class, at least they might be interested in their visual art, or their dancing, or their singing, or their instruments, or their theater. So my message is always to find a purpose and to have a purpose, because it gives your life meaning. It gives you reason to get up in the morning, and without that purpose, it could be a real sad kind of life.
You gotta dig up ahead, because that was kind of the last question right there. But I might reiterate at some point. But I guess, I don't know. Did you say what school you actually teach at? I don't know if you did.
Yeah, well, no, I teach downtown at Pittsburgh's Creative and Performing Arts High School. It's called Kappa, down on 9th Street, downtown Pittsburgh.
That's right. My dad did say that, and I wasn't sure. So he wanted me to ask you that, so he was curious.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And the kids are cool. I mean, again, it's they have a sense of being, and again, not necessarily in my English class, although I try to I try to bring it to life as much as I can, but at least they have a reason for being there, which is their art, and that's exciting.
Absolutely too. Yeah, it's funny when you mention about the kids too, because a while back I had interviewed Pierce Dipner. You guys still stay in touch?
Yeah, I occasionally I see him. I saw him the last time at Bill Tom's, is a great Pittsburgh artist who does the night before Thanksgiving every year. Been at the Hard Rock Cafe in Station Square for the last 5 or plus years. And I saw Pierce down there. Yeah, Pierce is great, great talent. He's now in his freshman year up at IUP, studying to be perhaps a teacher. I think he told me, but he's very talented. I mean, because he was performing when he was a young teenager, maybe 13 or maybe even younger. But yeah, he's a truly gifted kid, young adult.
I think when I interviewed him, I think he was looking more at CCAC, so I'm a little surprised he went all the way out to IUP. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure he's at IUP, I think. Yeah.
All right, but Pierce, good luck there, buddy. Let's see where his path takes him next. So
yeah, it's great.
And I've been meaning to talk to you about Billy Price too, I guess. Do you guys hang out a good bit and perform together at times?
I did just do something with him in Indiana. This is great. Indiana opened up their old movie theater, I guess. I don't know how old the building is. It seems pretty old, 100 years old. I don't know. And it's now a theater. I think it holds 300. And the fellow has been putting acts on the stage. Just for the last couple of months, I believe. Maybe just it started in January even. But I did a double bill. Billy Price was the headliner with his band, and I worked with my friend, harmonica player, Charlie Barath, a great singer and harmonica player. The two of us opened up the show, and I talked to Billy a little bit before the show. I mean, I don't see him all the time, but I do a Monday night thing. It's every other Monday, so tonight is Monday, and I'm not doing it. I'll be doing it next week, in fact, with Charlie down in East Liberty at a place called The Bridge. And Billy will be down there with us in March, I think March 20th. So, yeah, I try to see, people when I can and try to work with the opportunity of The Bridge was started for me to have a core band and to invite a front person, a singer, in every week to perform. And we've been doing it since August straight through January, every Monday, but they're cutting back now to every other Monday. So I've had many great Pittsburgh guests and come in and do the thing.
Yeah, Billy's always a cool guy, and I gotta tell you how many times I actually seen him, because it seems like he's playing at almost like every sort of venue in and around Pittsburgh too. But I guess, do you have a favorite venue do you play at?
Well, the one that I'm in at the time is the favorite. I mean, they're all special in their own way. I mean, Moondogs is in Blawnox, and that's right now the longest reigning club for live blues, 35 or more years. I don't remember the number, but so it's an established place that has had great acts in there. I mean, it had Keb Mo before he was famous. It had Little Derek Trucks when he was 13 years old. Joe Bonamassa before he came selling out places. And great blues guys. Johnny Clyde Copeland, who's no longer with us. Luther Allison, the Thunderbirds, Jimmy Vaughn, on and on and on. So Moondogs has done the thing and deserves all the recognition for what it has done, and that's always a great joy to play out there. And the Bridge is a new club that I do on Mondays, and it's a nice venue. I play with a band called John Gresh's Gree, which is a cool, like, New Orleans flavor band. We play every third Friday in Carnegie at a place called Riley's Poorhouse, and that's a very nice venue. We played on a Con Alma once in a while for the Sunday brunch. In fact, this weekend it'll be Friday at Carnegie with John Gresh, Saturday somewhere with John Gresh for a benefit at the Joinery Hotel, and Sunday at Con Alma. Then Monday I'll be with Charlie Barath at the Bridge. So all of the places, have their own specialness about them. I like them all.
They also got President's Day weekend coming up, so you can at least keep yourself pretty busy too, since you don't have school on Monday. But it's funny when you mentioned about Boondocks, because I was actually going to talk about that venue too. I've actually never been in it, but my dad and actually his friend Keith have also been in there too. That was when they also went to go see Billy Price, but I think they also saw, I don't know if they're a blues group, but Igor and the Red Elvises. Have you ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah. They're from Russia, I think. Igor and the Red Elvises. Yeah. I didn't see them there. I saw them up in Johnstown some years ago. Yeah, they were great.
I think it was like this one with like this big guitar, it's like a big red triangle, and it's like covering like the majority of her body. You're thinking like, how are you supposed to play over that thing too? So I don't know. Do you ever try to get theatrical at times in your shows or anything like that?
No, I mean, I'd probably just try to always concentrate on the on the music and trying to make it happen. And maybe sometimes for me trying to catch, as I said, that metaphorical wave, maybe I get into a theatrical movement or something, but nothing's necessarily calculated, or I'm not necessarily doing anything other than trying to tap into the muse, to try to listen to the other musicians and try to take it somewhere,
Yeah, I see. It's not like the classic rock ones where they got like all the theatrics, maybe like their mascot or something coming out and like doing these robot arms or anything, or the explosions and stuff like that too. So I guess
I don't have any of that stuff.
No, we're plain and simple. We like to keep it plain and simple. And
yeah, well, it's all about, for me, it's truly about the music and paying respect to the music that I love, and then trying to create songs that are within that flavor. So, there's artistic expression where you're trying to create your own art, but within the genre of the people that you love, B.B. King and Jimmy Reed and on and on. So I don't stray too far from what I would consider the true blues artists, and that's what I'd like to try to do, is try to keep it true to the stuff from the 1950s or maybe early 60s or maybe even the 40s. And I'm no expert at it, but that's where my heart and head and hands are always trying to go, to emulate the spirit of that stuff that I love.
Paying homage to our ancestors who came before us, in the manner of speaking.
Correct.
That's pretty cool. All right. And we kind of got a little bit inwards, but let's talk about your guitar. Is that the one you recently have been playing with, or do you have another one you kind of do with in shows?
Well, I've been mostly playing a 335, which is a Gibson guitar that has a certain fat sound, but it does depend. Like this is like with Charlie Barath, the harmonica guy that I'll be working with on Monday. He plays traditional Chicago blues or West Coast swing, and a lot of times I think of a fat like jazz box guitar like this that I'll use with Charlie, but I do play the 335 a lot, and I have some other guitars, but it's funny because I tend to really just use the same two or three often, and I'm not really, even though I have guitars, I'm not really that well versed in people will come to me. I did a gig with a guy the other day on Monday, and he was showing me his guitar, and he was talking about all the knobs and the this and that and the other. And quite honestly, I mean, I've been playing for a lot of years, but I don't know that much about them, except you plug them in and you try to get a sound out of them. So if it feels good in your hands, even if it's not plugged in, for me, that's the key. If the thing feels good, because the neck's a certain way, your hand has to feel good there. It just has to feel right. It's almost like the same as the kind of music I'm describing. It's really just a feel. And that's the way I look at the guitars, that if they feel right, that's half the battle. And then you get them to kind of sound the way you're trying to get them to sound, I think. Because the sound, I think comes from the head and the hands and the heart. And if B.B. King was playing an acoustic guitar, I'll bet he would sound like B.B. King, so I don't know that so much it matters what kind of guitar that it is. And therefore, I do like to occasionally try a different guitar because they do offer different flavors, different ways of approaching and attacking and trying to get the music out. But the whole spirit, the whole essence, the whole soul, the whole thing I'm striving for is always the same, regardless of the guitar. Although a Stratocaster might make you think of Magic Sam, and a big fat guitar might make you think of Hollywood Fats or Little Charlie Beatty or somebody else. So there is that subconscious thing of somebody else that played that kind of guitar that you're probably trying to emulate.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, have you always rolled with Gibson, or you just kind of jumped around with like all the various ones? I know you said the Stratocaster, or you just kind of like how Gibson was feeling, and then he just kind of jumped right into it.
Yeah, well, the Gibson 335 I wanted because Otis Rush and B.B. King, they all played that 335. This one is an old harmony that somebody just kind of painted up and fixed up. It was actually an archtop guitar that a guitar luthier put the pickup in. And I don't particularly like red. I would have preferred blue, but I like this a lot now. I bought it because the way that it looks, and then when the neck feels it's just beautiful to me. It's it just feels good in my hands. Now you can't do on here what you would do on a Strat. Like you're not going to get those great Buddy Guy bends, You could try, but it's more of a T-Bone Walker thing, which is not so much bending strings as it is just trying to play the individual notes and the melodies. So I have a couple harmonies, that one and another harmony that I like, and particularly with Charlie, the harmonica guy, because when you're backing up a harmonica player, to me, you're playing in a different way. You are supporting the harmonica, and that's a different kind of style of playing, I think, than if you're emulating Magic Sam or some of the more modern guys, So I think the tools probably have a bit of do matter a little bit, but if you only had one guitar and you had to do it, you'd do it because of your head, your hand, and your heart would try to make it work through whatever guitar you had,
Absolutely, too. And I guess it also works with, since you're talking about the guy who plays the harmonica, and I think having that sort of like flow between like instruments where it's like different brands and stuff like that too, and that also works too because everybody's got some sort of cohesion going on, so that's pretty cool. And I think, have you ever had any problems with like trying to play with any other musicians and there was like maybe some sort of breakups here and there? Or I guess if you want to share any of those kind of stories, let's see what happened.
I can't think offhand. I mean, like if I was on a stage with really skilled jazz players, I'd be like kind of like a rather foolish looking, and sounding, because to me jazz is a very schooled and sophisticated art form, and those guys know how to read charts and think of different chord substitutions beyond my comprehension. And I admire some of the jazz guys that have one foot in the blues, like Kenny Burrell and Grant Green, Charlie Christian. So as much as I'd like to be able to do that, I don't think I have, but that would be maybe of train wreck a bit, or I'd just, it would be awkward perhaps. So no, I can't think. I guess I can't think of anything offhand, but I will say that the drummer is the most important ingredient, or one of the most important ingredients, because again, to use B.B. King as one of the greatest proponents of blues music, if B.B. King's drummer was like John Bonham, the great John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, I'm not sure that it would sound real good, because B.B. King's trying to get a certain sound, and it has a certain swing, and I'm not sure. So drummers matter, and if you have the wrong drummer on the bandstand and the drummer's not able to get close to the sound you're trying to replicate, that could be tricky. You might have to cut the song short, or try something more simplistic or something more akin to whatever that drummer's strength is. So yeah, working with people can be tricky if you don't have a good pool of people to reach out to, who at least kind of understand a little bit of the flavor that you're trying to emulate. But that is, I don't remember the question, but that's a hard thing. It can be very difficult because not everybody's listening to the same stuff. Like you mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan up front, who's great. But some people's experience of blues guitar, it stops at Stevie Ray Vaughan. And so if you tried to talk to them about a Jimmy Rogers shuffle, or a West Coast, Hollywood Fats or Junior Watson kind of swing, they might not even know what that is. And so no discredit to them, because Stevie Ray Vaughan and everybody that has been spawned from his style, that's terrific stuff. But there's different flavors. And so you need to make sure you're kind of hanging with people that are trying to help you emulate your vision.
I think I would say I didn't really phrase it correctly, so I do apologize for that. But it was more along the lines, because you hear about these bands who have these bad breakups, and normally it's kind of like creative differences or maybe sort of family issues. So considering how many bands you've probably been a part of in your life, and even right now, I just didn't know, did you run into like any of those sort of like issues with like either creative differences and then the band just broke up? So you probably, I don't know. I was just trying to fish something there, see if there was a little bit of a funny story.
If I look back at what I've done, it's all been good. From, like, I think I just started performing out in around late 88, 89, and had a band with a high school friend, Larry Nath, who's still a great friend and a fellow English teacher, and he has a little studio in his basement, Electric Larry Land, and I did a little record up there during COVID where I played all the instruments on it, and he and I had a good time doing that. So we had a band, and then after that there was a lull, and I worked with many other Pittsburgh bands, and always enjoyed the experience with every one of them. And how they all ended were maybe different, or it was just a chance to move on to something else. So never any bad blood or hard feelings. It's all good, and it's all again a part of that process. If we think of that Sisyphus myth of rolling the boulder up the hill and trying to get to wherever it is you're going, to the top, so to speak, and you keep rolling down, no frustration in that. You have to consider the journey. How many times did you get to take that boulder up the hill, and what did you learn along the way? I mean, so like Gary Bloma, I worked with, and he was great, because he had his way of doing things, and it was really a well-oiled machine, really polished. Those guys were a little older than me. I stepped into that band after they had some guitar players for years, but I had the good opportunity of getting in there for a few years towards the tail end, and I learned from everybody, whether it was Gary Bloma, Joe West ran. Joe West is an example of someone who doesn't play an instrument, who just sings, but knows how to control a bandstand. She'll tell you what key it's in. She'll count it off, and she'll tell you what. She was a take charge woman, and that goes a long way too. So you learn a lot in life if you allow yourself to learn the lessons along the way with any circumstance that you're in. What to do and what not to do.
Absolutely too. It's at least good to see at Nice Surf History too. I kind of wish everybody had at least some sort of experience that you've had too, because obviously you hear about I think it's more so in like classic rock and some metal groups here where it turns like real nasty and that sort of thing too. So it's mainly because the bad influences with drugs, alcohol, and any sort of other addictions too. So I think it's good to see that you've at least been blessed to not have any of those sort of influences, bad influences in your life too. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So since you already talked about your guitar, I guess what do you use in terms of an amp and microphones, or and I guess also like other gear too?
Yeah, no, I use primarily a 1968 Fender Deluxe reverb amp. It's a 22 watt amp with one 12-inch speaker. It's not real loud, but depending on the room, if you dial it in just right, it can be satisfying. I just plug the guitar straight into the amp. I've tried some pedals. Might try them again. I don't know. The pedals, they are effects, and they obviously will have an effect on the sound. And sometimes, if you know how to use them, they enhance the sound tremendously. Unfortunately, to my detriment, I never sat around and learned how to use the pedals. So I just plug the guitar straight into the amp and just rely on, again, my head and my hands and my heart, and try to emulate what I'm trying to emulate. And a lot of the guys that I think of, like Hubert Sumlin or Jimmy Rogers, or even little Charlie Beatty, Duke Robillard, Junior Watson, I don't think they're really even, T-Bone Walker, I don't think there's any effects happening. So for me to try to emulate that sound, it has to be the guitar straight into the amp. I never... so it's almost kind of like a no-brainer. But like I said, I might try effects again because I have a few, but I just don't use them, and that might be laziness too. I don't. So it's a 1968 Fender Deluxe amp, which they started reissuing them, and it's a 68 because they have this grill around it. They call it the drip edge. 1968 was shortly after the company CBS bought the Fender company, and they went from what they call a black face to a silver face. But 68 was apparently still the electronics of the old school stuff, pre-CBS. So I know a little bit about that stuff, but not too much. I just like the way it sounds and feels, and it's easy to pick up and carry. I have a super reverb, but I haven't taken that out in a while because it's a bigger cabinet with 4 10-inch speakers. And I have found that if you're even on an outside stage and the sound man mics it and knows what to do, for what I'm doing, you don't need a bigger amp. So I don't know. I don't know everything, but that's just what I do.
Well, it's like you said earlier, you like to keep it nice and simple too, and pretty much that's what you want to do too. Because everybody else wants to try to get fancy at times, and the first thing that always keeps coming to mind is like how Jimi Hendrix would do his guitar at times, because I keep thinking of the song Voodoo Child, and like when he kind of broke into his solos there too. So that's the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to adding effects to the guitar too. But did you mention microphone? I don't know. Or do you jump around with microphones whenever you got a different...
No, I just have I think it's a Shure SM58, but a lot of times, at venues and festivals, they have their own equipment there, and so whatever it is, they're usually, I think the standard is like a Shure SM58. So I carry one for if I'm at a club that doesn't have one, and it's an SM58, but I don't. I'm not too particular. I don't know much about those either. You plug them in and you speak or sing in them, and you hope that you get the sound. So for any qualities that I may possess, there's the inability to be able to articulate the subtle intricacies of microphones, guitars, and amplifiers. I just plug it in and play.
Absolutely, that's all you gotta do, and then just hope for the best afterwards. But we'll let the engineers, everybody else, manipulate the sound for us. So
right.
So it all sounds good. But I guess this one kind of leads into this question. So what do you love most about music as well as playing the guitar?
Well, it's therapeutic. It can make you feel good just listening to stuff. It's just I mean, I guess it can be nostalgic. That's why certain radio stations that play the hits from your high school years, 40, 50, whatever years ago, people are keyed into that because it takes you back to that place and time, and it feels good. But I don't listen to any. I listen to different stuff: country music, blues music, jazz music. What do I like about it? It's just again the feel. It's almost like medicinal. I don't know if it's why people would indulge in caffeine or other substances that make you feel a certain way. It feels good to hear those records, and particularly those old ones. I mean, from Sun, like the old Howlin' Wolf records from the Sun Studios before Elvis was in there. I mean, those records are great, man. They're raw and they're real, and they're before, I think, really the commercialization of let's do this and let's put this effect on and let's sell it this way and let's market it that way. These are just guys getting in the studio, cranking out this raw emotional intensity, and you can feel it, like all those early guys, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, T-Bone Walker, a little more sophisticated, but still from a different time, the 1940s into the 50s. It feels good to hear that, and I just like the way that it sounds, and I like what they're doing, and then I like to try to aspire to be able to emulate that, and so that keeps me listening and learning and trying to reach for the top.
Reach for the sky in sort of way.
Reach for the sky, yes. The rock analogy again. I mean, it's not like reaching to the top of stardom or anything. It's just like trying to always be better. Trying to improve on your skill level, trying to be better than your former self, and that's the day-to-day challenge for us, to constantly be improving.
As well as also learning from your mistakes too, because
yes,
I think that's probably the biggest one too.
Well, and I think probably the direct answer to that question is, I used to work with a drummer who had many students, and he said, I tell my students all the time, listening to music is just as important as practicing. And that's so true, particularly if you're a musician. You probably listen different than an average layman who's listening one way. As a musician, you tend to be listening to, if you're a guitar player, what's he doing on the guitar, and so by listening, you're subconsciously learning, I think, and then you try to put it into practice when you have a guitar that you can pick up. So I just like the fact that it's alive. Even if it was recorded in 1949, those recordings are timeless, and they're alive, and you feel an energy, and it gives you faith and confidence that what you like does exist. And even though it may not be the commercial entree that is being delivered to the masses, if it makes you feel good, like you just dig in and you try to keep that spirit alive.
Absolutely.
So that's what I like.
I say more in drumming terms, it's like more of deciphering. So, like what's considered the hi-hat, what's considered the bass, for instance, or anything like that too. So I think terminology-wise, I think we might differ a little bit, but I know what you're talking about too. So it's at least along the same lines. So that's great.
Yeah.
You know what? I forgot to ask this. I guess do you jump around with various brands of picks, or do you always stuck with one?
Well, I was just on Pittsburgh Guitars I think Wednesday to pick up my amplifier because it needed a tune-up. And I said, can I get 10 picks? I get like Pittsburgh guitar picks. I don't know who makes them. They have the logo on Pittsburgh guitar, and I get heavy ones. But the fact of the matter is, I hardly ever use a pick. I keep them as a crutch. Sometimes with these guitars, I do use them. Like with Charlie playing the blues, I will sometimes use them because you can really dig in. But out of stubbornness, I learned to play with my fingers because as a kid, the pick kept falling out of my hand. It would fall under the couch, somewhere on the floor. I couldn't find it. And I don't remember a moment, but it was like I just said, well, I'm not going to keep bending over. So out of stubbornness, I just started playing with my fingers. And and with the theory being that if I can't find the pick, at least I can find my fingers. And so I play primarily with my fingers, which has a certain sound to it, but also has its limitations. But I've just, that's just the way I learned how to do it. So picks, I do buy them. I have heavy picks that I buy. I do carry them, and I do kind of hold them as a crutch sometimes. And often I'll just hold them, and I'm still playing with my fingers. I can't even find one laying around now. That's what I'm talking about. I'm looking around, I can't find one. So it's haunted me all of my life. Well, it hasn't haunted me. It has tried to
traumatize me.
I can't find a pick, so I just use my fingers.
I was gonna say traumatize me in some sort of way, but
yeah, right.
That or like it fell in between the couches right there, and then we like dig it out. So many years later.
You got to dig it out. It's a whole project. Yeah.
Oh, is that too? It'd be like you end up finding it so many years later. You think like, holy crap! I found this pick when I was only 12 years old. So
yeah,
I know what you mean too. And sometimes even you find a lot of food that somehow found its way into the sofa too. So that's kind of disturbing in a sort of way too. All right. But have you ever done it with just the finger picks? I think one of those like little metal ones that kind of look like claws in some sort of way.
I did try those, and I wish I would have stuck with it, because there's a style called Travis picking. A guy was named Merle Travis, and he played with this great country band, Hank Ballard, Hank Thompson. But anyway, Travis picking is that you have a thumb pick on your thumb, and you use that for the bass, and you play the melody like a, let's see.
I'm thinking this could be like a SpongeBob theme kind of song here.
Is that SpongeBob?
I don't know, but it sounds like it could fit right into it too. So
yeah, that's Elizabeth Cotton. She was she played lefty, maybe even upside down. That's a song called Freight Train. But the thumb picks definitely, and I was using them for a little bit during COVID. Gives you a harder sound, because the plastic on the string is more meat than the flesh. More, I shouldn't say more meat. It's just a bigger sound. But I maybe laziness. Yeah, I said stubbornness is why I don't use a pick. Maybe laziness is why I didn't keep up with the thumb pick. So I do it with my fingers. But yeah, that's just the way things happened.
I see. And I guess speaking of like the left-handed guitars, where they would like flip it upside down, so you had like the high E. It's like the first string you touch right there.
Yeah.
Do they allow it with like right-handed players at all, or is that just only strictly more for lefties?
Well, I think I don't know of any right-handed players that do that. I mean, it would make sense as to why it happened, because obviously at one time this is how the guitar was. It was a right-handed instrument. And so those guys only, the only choice they had was to turn it upside down. I mean, the great blues guys would be Albert King, who was a tremendous influence on Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Otis Rush. And they claim that you can pull down, to bend a note, you can pull down much better than pushing up. And so when you hear Albert King, when you think of Stevie Ray Vaughan and those slow songs where he bends those notes, he's doing Albert King. And to get those bends, they claim that you upside down is easier. Plus with Stevie, he was a half step lower, so the strings were a little bit looser. So there's all other kinds of things that you can do. But I don't know if I've ever seen a right-handed guitar player play with a skinny string on top.
I don't know. I just thought it'd be interesting. I didn't know if they would eventually do that, or I imagine it must be weird then if it had to be tuning wise. But then again, I'm not very good with guitars, so.
Well, yeah, it's tuned the same way, but the weird thing is that they're obviously shaping the chord differently, because it's backwards, upside down.
Yeah.
But I guess they say if that's the way that you learn, it's, I don't know if this is a fair analogy, but like me playing with my fingers is just because that's the way I did it. And so that's the way you learn. So if a guy learns to play with the skinny string on top, then that's all he knows, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess what you mean there. And I guess, since you did talk about COVID, I guess, how bad did it impact you?
Well, COVID, I mean, yeah, everybody was impacted. I mean, for my day job, we taught from home, just like you and I are talking now. I'd have a class of 30 kids. We did a whole year. The kids who are currently seniors, I taught 2 years ago when they were 10th graders. So 2 years ago, my school was all online. There was a big learning curve for all of us, teachers, including students, to figure out how to work the material, figure out how to get the PowerPoint up there, figure out how to show you different things other than myself, figure out how to get kids into breakout rooms. So that was a tremendous learning curve. And gigs, I mean, I feel and felt for the guys who, are doing just music. I mean, it was a tremendous change for them. No more gigs. They invented ways of doing it, whether it was an online performance with a Venmo, PayPal thing. But I think it changed the landscape of everything for everyone in all facets of our world. And musicians being performers that have to go out into a club to perform, that was cut. And it was cut for me, but I mean, I'm not pretending that was, I fortunately have the day job. But it did give me opportunities to, take some Skype lessons, and to just, dig in a little bit more. I did a cemetery series where I was writing songs and recording them in the cemetery, one summer. Because you could go outside, and if you were in a cemetery, there's nobody else really around. So I think change for everybody, but I don't remember if I answered the question, but COVID, yeah.
Like I said, did you have any brushes with it? Did you test positive a couple times?
No, fortunately I did not. I know people who did, many people. And I was careful. I mean, I didn't go out. Certainly not as much, and we didn't really go out to places. And you were extra careful. You're wearing a mask. You get the vaccine. So no, I didn't suffer any of the consequences of having COVID. It was just the whole bleak feel that we all got from this unthinkable thing, like up turning the whole world upside down. It was just hard to wrap the brain around.
It kind of struck you at first as like that zombie apocalypse sort of contagion that was going to sweep in. You see in those horror movies at times. At least it was for me. So I mean, thank God it didn't turn out like that. So I guess. Did it give you any sort of blessings in a way? Because I'm careful when I say this, because I used to say in my earlier interviews, like, was it a blessing in disguise, like allowing you to reach out and do like other projects, social media and stuff like that? But I guess, did you have any of those kind of blessings?
Well, if we look at it that way, I suppose it afforded the opportunity to be less in a hurry, even though I was teaching every day on how to get lessons together and do the thing. I didn't live by the clock so much as I do as a teacher. I mean, I did have still the metaphorical, the bell when I had to be in there and the kids had to be online, but I didn't have to get up at a certain time, catch the trolley at a certain time, get into school at a certain time, ready or not, here they come, flooding into the room. So all that was non-existent. And I think for all of us probably, again, I can only speak for myself. I'm sure a lot of people had great things they had to suffer through. But if you're asking about the blessings, it was time to reflect and not be in a hurry all the time. Rush. because there's nowhere to go, so you ain't going anywhere. You're at home. Think about what you're doing, what you want to do. So in that sense, it was a time to I don't know what word to say. I don't want to say to relax, but to ponder the meaning of life, perhaps, or your purpose, what am I doing and how am I doing and that sort of thing.
I was going to say reflect. I didn't know if that was going to be one of the words you were thinking of, but
yeah.
I can see what you mean. You said you also utilize Skype during your classroom interactions, or did you also use like Zoom?
Yeah, with the classroom, it was Microsoft Teams. And then I had I took some guitar lessons with this great guitarist out of Chicago named Billy Flynn. And they were kind of like little group lessons, but there weren't many of us on there, maybe 4 to 5 or 6 guys. And that was on Zoom. That would be like every Monday for quite a while, at least over a year during COVID. And then there was a guy from England. I think he did Skype. He's a great guitar player, Chris Corcoran. And I took some lessons from him. So it did afford me that time because I wasn't like, I didn't have to wait till I got home because I was already home. It was because I take public transportation to and from work. So, that's a little sliver of time to get to the trolley, to get on the trolley and, back and forth. And so with COVID, that's all cut out. And you do have the luxury of, if school is over, you don't leave the classroom, you just close your computer. Or you open it and do a guitar lesson. So, yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I got to see why. And I remember the first couple of weeks just feeling weird when it initially started happening. So I can relate in the way. Afterwards, now it just kind of comes naturally afterwards. So, but it's good to see. It's good to see everything worked out in the end, and it's good to have you around here, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Just trying to make sure to see where we are in the script. I guess how many times have you been in the studio? I'm assuming you've been in there a good bit.
Well, I did 5 of my own records, but I was in the studio maybe the first time with a Gary Beloma record, and then I don't remember if anybody else. Not that many. I mean, it's a great experience to be in a studio because you're like creating stuff. It's really cool. It's fun. I like it. I wish I could do it more. But I have 5 records, and I was on one Gary Beloma record called Pack Your Shoot. And maybe I'm on like some. I don't think I was in the studio for any other things. I
got that name, Pack Your Shoot, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You guys see where that one's going too. But I guess it was just segueing into this question. I guess, what's it like recording a song or an album in the studio? Probably already touched on it, but I thought we just kind of reiterated.
It can be. It's always exciting, regardless of where I've been to do it. And I've been in maybe 4 different places only. They're all different, but it's like, a feeling that you're going in to create something that you're going to have out on like a thing, a CD, and that's exciting. It's like making art. There could be a little bit of nervousness to it also, obviously, because it's like, can I try to play that piece again? It's not quite how I want it, but it's been an exciting experience for me every time. Even though it's been different some of the time, it's always fun and fulfilling.
Absolutely. I was going to say more nervous thing, especially if it's like your first time going into it, especially when you're trying to learn how to play with the click or wherever the metronome's like set up with the song too. So I feel like that would be probably the most nervous part, especially when you're just trying to, it's like, okay, we're rolling, the light's on, or whatever it is that tells you like, hey, we're recording it right now. So
Well, yeah, that depends. Like the one that I did in California was with a lot of really seasoned pros, and that was a little nervous, but the guy doing the thing was like Kid Anderson is the great guitar player and just an expert in knowing how to do sound, and it was mostly the way I always thought it should be based upon what I ever read, which was kind of like a live recording. And so that was just like playing with great musicians and making it happen. There have been other times where I've been in studios where the drum and the bass is already laid down, and then you do have to play on top of that, and that's just a different way of doing it. You don't get to play off of each other because they've already laid the track down, and you just add to it. So it's two different schools of thought. I've done it both ways, but regardless of the way that it is, you're always trying to add something to the song with the contributions that you can make with your instrument, and that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely too. I was gonna say, man, they got you traveling all over the place now. Even going out to California and to just do like this nice little recording too. Was this more recent, or was this like before?
That was 2015 out in San Jose. Yeah. Well, it was just something that I wanted to go out there and do it, because this guy had a reputation for knowing how to make like a blues-based record, and I have absolutely no regrets. It's because there's more than just recording it. There's also the end where whomever is in control does whatever they do to compress the sound or to level the sound or to give you the final sound, And so a record or a recording or a CD could sound different depending upon who's doing that final mixing, So it's not just the musicians playing. It's the machines taking the information in, and then there's a human putting it all together and putting it back out. And some, like anything in life, some painters are better painters than others, and all paintings can be beautiful, but some might be a little more pristine or a little more appealing. And it's personal. I like to look at Picasso's Cubanist paintings. They're very distorted, but I like the way they look. I also like to look at Impressionists like Monet and Renoir. And some people might not like that kind of painting. They like it another way.
Yeah.
It's still all art,
I was going to say, where do you factor in Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and some of those other well-known like artistes?
Yeah, right. There's so many great artists and so many ways of creating that stuff, But if you find yourself in a position to be having the opportunity to make art of any kind, and if you're passionate about it, that's a great thing. It's a blessing to be grateful for, and you do your best, and then you hope that the muses or the powers that be can help you get some finished product that is appealing to at least you and perhaps other people as well. So other people can share in and enjoy your creation by experiencing through the headphones or whatever.
Yeah, we actually. I was trying to think of something with like a metaphor wise. They're paying in your brain all the musical notes and everything too that comes through both ends of the ears, we should say. It's not like go out one and out the other one, so otherwise that's a little offensive, unfortunately, but you get the idea. But regardless,
yeah.
I think we got some jump into the fun questions right now, because we've been talking for a good hour right now, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, and I don't want to go over the limit. Like probably an hour is as long as people want to stay attention, right? Keep attention.
Well, I mean, they keep saying the attention span's going down, but
yeah.
We're just down to the last 5 questions, so don't worry, we're almost done.
Okay.
And these ones, you can elaborate or keep them short as best you want, but here we go.
Okay.
For fun questions, what is your favorite alcoholic drink, and what's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Well, I used to love to drink martinis and bourbon, but I quit drinking that stuff February 25th of about 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4, I can't remember. So I like red wine and IPA beers.
You like IPA? You know what? I tried those, and I'm sorry, but it's not for me. I tried
Yeah,
them.
some people don't like them. Yeah.
I don't know.
Non-alcoholic, I got turned on to the fizzy water. It's got
Mineral
a some
Vasa.
flavor. What is it?
Well, I was gonna say, I think it's like the way you said like fizzy water. I think of mineral water or mineral Wasser. That's what the
Yeah,
German
yeah,
style
yeah.
is.
Yeah, mineral water, but they like with a little flavor in it or something. Um, I don't even know what it's called, but yeah, I like that. Or regular water. Um, I think that's probably it. And coffee, I drink black coffee.
You gotta have your coffee in the morning. So,
Yeah.
all right, fair enough. What is your favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, good choice. You know, I haven't seen
Yeah.
that one recently, but like, it's still amazing too when you think of like the just standing out in the rain doing that sort of thing right there.
Yeah, right, right.
And
Yeah.
it's just a hell of a nice storyline too. But you
Yeah.
see the hypocrisy that the warden does and everything too. So
Yeah.
tragic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and also, just hanging in there, man. Hanging in there, because that dude, I don't know how long he's in there, and then he slowly but surely digs that hole and gets out. This just this patience and perseverance. Yeah, that always struck me as a good film. I like that.
Good choice too. All right, what is your favorite food?
Well, I always would say to my wife when she'd ask, "What do you want?" I'd say pasta. Let's get some pasta. And then when I found out carbohydrates put on weight, and so I cut back on the carbohydrates, and that worked to great effect. You can lose weight if you watch what you eat. But still, probably I would say I eat salmon. I like salmon, and I love pasta. Salmon and pasta.
That's a good choice. You know what? I actually had a shrimp and scallops not too long ago too, with nice little pasta.
Yeah.
You know, it gets pricey. It gets pricey now with those scallops too. And
Yeah.
I thought I saw like those real big ones out in Cape May the one time too. But these ones are like, I kind of like that. They're still good, meaty and everything too. But I'm just thinking like,
Yeah.
you're talking like those giant scallops. I thought it would just be that sort of big, but that's kind of stretching
Yeah.
it, I guess.
You can I get those giant ones down the Strip District down at Woolies once in a while. They're gigantic. Yeah, you only need a few of them because they're very meaty. Yeah, I like seafood. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? I used to not be a fan of salmon, but now it's starting to get onto me too, because there's also what we get from Sam's Club that was up at where the Pittsburgh Mills is. They stuff it with crab meat. They put it right there in the middle too.
Okay. No good. Yeah.
Very good. No, it's good. It's very
Oh, you
good.
like it? Okay,
yeah.
good.
It's very good. It's very good. I'm sorry.
Good.
It came out wrong. I'm sorry. I meant it was good.
Okay.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant. Okay. All right. So the last of the fun questions is, what is currently your favorite song?
It's funny, I just asked my students that today, and when I ask them to do anything, I always make sure I can do it myself. And today I found myself stumped because I gave them a few moments. It was the bell ringer. Because I said music, it's part of our identity. And I said, what is a song? What music or song resonates with you right now? And I said, this will change every day, of course, but what is something, And I wasn't able to pull one up. They didn't call me on it, but usually I'll start by saying my answer, and I didn't have one today. Favorite song? I've been listening to this guy, Jimmy Burns. This is a great Chicago guy. This is a video that was recorded in a club in Chicago called Blues on Halstead, which unfortunately closed just recently after COVID. And it just is a great DVD. What else have I been listening to? I've been listening to this another old blues record I found with some artists that I don't even know the names of. Just this is old primitive stuff. I don't know. The Summer Wind by Frank Sinatra I love because it was in a good movie called The Pope of Greenwich Village with Mickey Rourke when he was cool. And not that he might not be cool now, but when he was, before he went through all the changes, and The Summer Wind by Frank Sinatra. one of the greatest Rolling Stones songs I like was "Can't You Hear Me Knocking." It's got that modulation where the saxophone solo comes in, and it's just a terrific song. I guess the more you think about it, the list could go on. So I don't know of any others because I'm always listening to different things.
Like at least say it's the top three right there, but it was technically meant to be one song. But that's whatever though. It's a good choice. Good choices, I should say. All right. So. Jimmy, we're down to the last question right here. Did you have anything for me or any other words you want to say before we jump into it?
Well, no, I appreciate you doing this. It's cool that you're doing a podcast. That's very exciting. I might like to look into that in my future, and I'll have to ask you how that's done. But no, I just thank you for reaching out and doing the interview. It's nice that you're, trying to get things out there and hopefully if anybody hears anything that I have to say and it sparks a little interest, piques their interest in anything, then that's satisfying, right? We never know the ears that might be listening and what they might take or how long they'll listen. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about some things. And like if anybody's interested in, Jimmy Adler, just go to jimmyadler.com. And I'm working with myself, the Jimmy Adler Band, or John Gresh's Gree every third Friday in Carnegie at the Riley's Poorhouse, or like I said, Charlie Barath, the blues band occasionally, and then Mondays at the East Liberty, the Bridge. So like I would say to people, go out and make an effort to go out and see some live music, because there's nothing like live music. I mean, the records are great, but live music is it's like painting in front of people on a canvas. Like there it is, and then it's gone. I mean, although the paint, maybe that's not the good analogy because the paint remains on the canvas, but you there's something to live music. It's a give and take between audience and performer. And so it's very special. And unless it's recorded, that's what I mean to say. There it is, and then it's gone. And you'll never hear it that way again unless somebody records it. So I would say to people, go out and check out live music, or pick up an instrument and make your own live music, or learn how to play. If that's what fancies you, if that's what you like.
Absolutely. Although that wasn't the answer to the last question, though, because actually this one I'm kind of morphing together too, because I think there was one I was talking about what sort of advice you could give to musicians, but this one I'm going to kind of morph. So, given what COVID has done, and considering how we're still kind of stuck here and trying to at least claw our way back to some sort of normalcy, what sort of message of hope, and I guess if you want to give advice to young musicians or anybody who wants to try to do what you're doing, what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to purpose and passion. I mean, if you are passionate about something, anything, whether it's music or anything else, some artistic thing, it gives you a purpose. And if you're feeling like you don't have a purpose, then find something that you can get passionate about to give yourself a purpose, and then never give up, because even if you are just alone, if COVID has shut things down, at least you have a passion to create your art, and you can still create it all by yourself, although it's more exciting if there are others to share it with. But this craft of music, you must practice in isolation. And then you must deliver in front of a crowd to get that kind of satisfaction, to know that it matters. So that's the dichotomy of the music. If you are alone, work on your craft, have passion for it. It'll give you a purpose. And then when you have an opportunity to perform, don't be afraid. It might be easier to perform with somebody else by your side. And, the more you perform, you feel that certain feeling. And the music becomes alive, and it becomes its own thing. And if that's what you truly love, don't give up on it. Have that passion, and you'll have a purpose, and it'll make life more meaningful.
Spoken like a true prodigy. All right. So, Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on right here. We've reached the end of my podcast, and I guess, did you have any final words or any shout outs you want to give?
No, just thanks to all the people listening and all the people that are lovers of music, and it doesn't matter what genre of music you love. Listening to it is beautiful. It's like a religion. It's like makes you feel good, and go out and hear some live music, because that's a very special art in and of itself. Mistakes you might hear on the stage, or perfection, whatever, nothing like seeing and hearing the thing happening in real time. So those would be my words of advice, to go out and see some live music. And if you come and see me and you heard me on this podcast, say hello. I heard you on Brian's podcast.
Sounds good. Actually, it's funny when you mentioned about the whole thing, like the music being like a religion too. It's be like, come to the Sabbath, that sort of thing too. So unfortunately,
right.
we're referencing Black Sabbath at that point too. So completely different things, but
yeah,
you get the idea. So
yes.
All right, everyone. My guest today was Jimmy Adler. Go check this guy out. And is there any other way they can reach you? I know you talked about your website and I guess some of the groups you've been part of. Do you use like any other social media?
I use Facebook, and then my website usually has all the dates on there, whether I'm playing with John Gresh's Gree or Charlie Baraff or Jimmy Adler Band, or doing any other guest spots. It's always on Jimmy Adler, JIMMYADLER.com. And you can, see stuff on there and learn everything Jimmy Adler on there. You get the answers to the original question that Brian gave me, which was, who is Jimmy Adler? You might be able to find it on jimmyadler.com.
And on this podcast episode too. We'll have to see.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So where can we hear your podcast?
It'll take a while, but I got a few other ones to deal with first. But it'll be on my YouTube channel. I always post them every Monday at 12:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you guys come in there. I'll make sure to message you, and also make sure to give some sort of announcement here and there on my YouTube channel too. So
yeah,
all right.
Awesome.
Until then, everybody stay safe. Stay tuned, Jimmy.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate it. You have a good day.
You too.